Why is it that so many other real estate agents are having such success with Instagram? Not just in the sense that they're present and people are liking their stuff, but that they're actually closing deals. Why is it that other people are having success and maybe you feel like you're not? This episode is going to unlock some of that. Michelle Berman, owner of Berman Media, does an incredible job of going through and really giving a framework and a structure through which you can implement and utilize in your day-to-day activity with Instagram. Knowing that at the end result, you're going to have people coming to you wanting you to be their real estate agent as opposed to you chasing them. It's a great episode. Michelle's brilliant. I can't wait for you to hear what she has to say and to get your hands on her tool, which will be posted in the Think Bigger Real Estate group that summarizes all of this and allows you to start implementing today. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. I know that you have questions about Instagram. I know that you want to use it at a higher level. I know that you're spending time there, but you're not sure if you're getting the results that you want. Today, we're going to bring you an expert, probably the nation's leading expert when it comes to Instagram for real estate agents. Her name is Michelle Berman, and she coaches real estate agents at a very high level about how to use Instagram, not just for your own vanity, but to actually get results. I'm excited to introduce her to that. Just know that at the end of the show, we're going to be putting in the group Think Bigger Real Estate on Facebook. We're going to be putting in that group some of the secrets that she shares on this episode and some stuff that she doesn't share on this episode. So be sure, if you're not yet a member of the Think Bigger Real Estate group, go get into that group so that you can implement what's taught today. So with that being said, I want to welcome today Michelle Berman. Michelle Berman. Thank you so much. I know on Facebook it's Michelle Michael and Michelle Berman, Berman Media. So if you're looking for her on Facebook, that's where you'll find her. It's actually Michelle Michael, but her name is Michelle Berman. And she's with Berman Media. And Michelle, I'm so grateful to have you here today. What a privilege for all of us, the Think Bigger audience. We want to welcome you to come. We want to welcome you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Justin. I appreciate it. And that married life, changing your name situation, it kind of messes people up, but I love it.
Yeah, right. When you find the right person, it's worth it, right? It's worth
Absolutely.
it.
I'll change my name for him any day. It's okay.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of your background. Obviously, you come from experience. You have a powerful Instagram presence yourself. Talk to us a little bit about kind of how you got to the point where you're at today.
Yeah. So one of the things I love talking about the most is specifically, I think a lot of people attribute success and ultimately like how much money people are making off of how many Instagram followers they have. And I think that that's one of those things that if there's anything I want all of you to take away, it's to debunk that idea of I have to have this millions and millions or thousands and thousands of followers in order to be successful on this platform. So I actually am just under 5,000 followers total. But when I started Berman Media in November of 2014, I had 0. So I, over the course of going on 6 years, have grown my presence significantly. But do I have a monster presence in the sense of what a lot of people might consider, influencer status? No. But I'm cool with that because what I do have is a very targeted, very specific audience of people that buy from me. So it's really important for you guys as, agents in general to understand that it's not about the number of followers you have. It's about who are those followers and where are they coming from. So how I got started in this truthfully is, back in 2012, I graduated with my master's in social media public relations after getting an undergrad degree from Rutgers in 2008. And it's been a really fun process for me to go from thinking I was going to be a journalist and a writer to getting a master's degree in social media public relations, which at the time everyone was like, what the heck is that? So it was a very new degree. And when I started off in corporate America right after graduating, my issue, especially in the social media space, was that it was very cookie cutter. And I use that phrase a lot. And I know, Justin, you and I talked about the cookie cutter phrase a little bit already, but it was very black and white. Everybody's content looked the same. All of the type of content we were producing was parallel regardless of the industry. And I struggled with that as a creative person. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And there's so many people spending a lot of money on social media marketing. And why is my content looking the same as everyone else if I'm spending that kind of money? So I actually quit in 2014 and started Berman Media that November. And the very first thing I said to myself was, I've got to figure out how to master this on my own. and then decide how I can move my needle towards running and operating a larger media organization. So when I first started off in Instagram, I actually was an influencer, just like a lot of you guys have probably heard of that phrase. I just bought and sold Instagram accounts, grew them, flipped them and sold them, just like you guys would flip and sell real estate. And throughout that process, I got really good at understanding, what kind of ads are going to convert on what kind of pages in front of what particular type of audience. So I was essentially getting paid to help a company get an ROI on an ad after we put it on an Instagram page. So as I got really good at that process, I started to realize that I can now teach this and I can really empower you guys to start using the platform to make yourselves more money and generate better, stronger leads. And that's kind of how it all came to be.
A couple of things I want to point out here. We've spoken about this concept of much of the marketing that you see out there looks very much the same, right? I think generally speaking, loan officers as well as real estate agents tend to look at their peers to see what they're doing. So naturally that's going to breed, right, some commonalities. But I also think, to your point, is that some people say like, look, I don't have time to learn this, but I need to do it. So they hire somebody. It's not in their voice. It's their face is nowhere to be seen. They're simply, they're putting content out there about real estate, and or it's very corporatized, right? It looks like something that your corporation has made for you. What's the detriment of doing that? I mean, we see people doing that. What do you think is the biggest downfall by people really kind of choosing one of those paths, kind of the easy way out, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's the easy way out. It's I don't have time to invest in this. However, I know I'm supposed to be present kind of mentality. And the downfall, in my opinion, and especially, Justin, I don't know how old you are, but I just turned 30. So I'm in that millennial space, right? Sometimes I don't claim to be, but I am, sadly, sometimes. But anyway, so being a millennial, we have this mentality of instant gratification, right? We want things quickly and we want it fast. And really the bigger part of that from the psychological standpoint is that our generation wants connection. We want emotional connection. And for me, the problem or the detriment to this cookie cutter corporate content that you just pull out of like a Dropbox is that how am I getting to know you? How am I building a virtual handshake, as I call it, with you in that way? And the answer is I'm not. So therefore, how are you going to convince me to give you my money? It's probably not going to happen. Whereas somebody who has spent the time to, even if they have an assistant, really work with that assistant and mastermind together to produce content that is in that person's voice, is behind the scenes pictures of them, is them on date night with their husband or their wife. That little bit of time doesn't have to take, a whole month, but it can take a Friday, every other Friday, right? And 2-hour mastermind to kind of come up with that idea. And as you're going through that process, you're going to start developing stronger virtual connections because people get to know you and people feel like they know you before they even talk to you. And I think all of us would agree that the best feeling in the world is when you walk into a meeting with someone who you've met virtually, but you feel like you've known them forever. And that's what we're after. I'm not after okay, let me call your sales number that's the link in your bio, right? And sit on hold for 20, 30 minutes. Like, I want you.
When you are perceived as every other realtor, every other mortgage loan officer out there, then people are not willing to step up and A, choose you, or B, pay a traditional real estate mortgage fee for you, right? Because you're a commodity now. You're the same as everybody else. And what I hear you saying is that when people are willing to actually differentiate in their content by being a real human, by being a trustworthy human, by answering their questions, being the expert long before they need the expert, right? Through social media, now people are willing to actually choose you because now you stand out, right? When you say it in those terms, it totally simplifies it. And hopefully that's kind of connected with some people, is that, oh, I need to stand out, right? And the way to stand out is not to look like everybody else. And the way to not look like everybody else is to actually portray me as a human being, living my life, doing my business, because that's unique, right? It's unique to everybody. That's the beautiful thing, is that I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with the thought of like, I've got to be some influencer star to be big on Instagram. I have to have tons of followers. You've debunked that, right? Because the reality is it's not more people, it's the right people. And it's building trust with them. And I would add that in this pandemic, right? Where being face-to-face, knee to knee, creating client events, mixers, stuff that many people have built their business on, like there could not be a better time for you to double down and build trust and build notoriety with people through this medium than right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, more than ever now, right? And you hit it spot on of, we don't get to do those cocktail parties anymore. We don't have big networking events. We're not going to a happy hour mixer thing, right? We're not doing these like client appreciation events at the brewery down the street. We're not doing that stuff. So how can we actually create this connection? And as you said, it's doubling down on the pieces or the opportunities that you are afforded to be able to do that. And I think, to piggyback off of what you said, Justin, a huge problem right now is people are taking away their marketing money. They're like, oh, my husband was furloughed. Let me take a week out, or like, let me take this month off of my marketing. And they're assuming that that's what they should be doing. And naturally, the fear response of a human is to do that. But the agents that I've worked with and the agents I'm currently working with that have actually, as you said, doubled down right now are the ones that are doing 6, 7, 8 transactions a month because other realtors aren't willing to do that. One of my best clients, one of my best students, and one of my very first ones, Blake Clark out here in Queen Creek, Arizona, he actually told me on an interview that I did with him a couple of days ago, actually last Thursday, so like 4 or 5 days ago, that he got, just in the last 2 months, he got 5 deals from other agents because they weren't returning the phone calls of their clients. So their clients called Blake saying, so-and-so realtor isn't returning my call. I assume he's just not working right now. So Blake, of course, isn't going to say no to the opportunity, especially considering other agents are just not working. Now, how is Blake able to portray that he's working? Social media.
Yeah, it really is. It's a window into your day, right? It's a window into your life. And naturally, you're going to attract people that are like you and that respect what you do as long as you actually put yourself out there. Let's talk a little bit about how to create a niche, right? Because I think some people, they try and serve all audiences, they try and serve all people, when in actuality, as we've described, if you'll just highlight yourself, who you really are, like who you're really helping right now, you start to create a niche, right? Talk to us a little bit more about how you create that. And then I know you've identified there's kind of 4 types of content. I'd love to hear you share with the audience, what are those kinds of content? Or what are those 4 types of content, and how do people go about creating that?
Yeah, so I call those like the pillar pieces of content, so we can definitely talk about that. And the first piece to that is our niche conversation. This is really, really hard for agents. Even if they've been in the industry for 20 years or 2 months, their conversation with me is always the same. Well, I don't want to not serve everyone because then I won't be serving or closing any deals. And my answer to them whenever they say something like that to me is, no, actually, you'll close twice as many deals if you can really get into the nitty gritty of who you actually serve. So one of the ways that I coach people through this is I want you guys to write down your last 10 to 15 transactions. And as you're going through that process, I want you to identify everything, all the good, all the bad, the price point, specifically where the referral or the lead came from. So if it was a referral from somebody, where did that referral come from, right? So how did you meet that person? Were you, or what's a good example? Lindsay Blazevich is a huge agent that I work with here in Arizona. And she actually runs One Love Pitbull Rescue. And when she was doing this homework assignment, she was like, oh my gosh, Michelle, 14 of my last 18 transactions came as referrals out of people who adopted pit bulls from my foundation. And she had no idea until she actually looked at her numbers and mapped it out. So that's what I always tell people is look at your last 10, write everything down, write down where the lead source actually came from. And as you're doing this, you're going to start to identify a theme. And then the next piece to that is if I have a theme and I can say that I specifically serve first-time home buyers who are single moms or new families or new couples that have just gotten married. That sounds a lot better, and you can now go into the next piece of your marketing than if you just say, oh, I'm a first-time home buyer specialist. And I know, Justin, you'll agree with me, but there's a lot of first-time home buyers. There's a wide variety of different types. So that's why it's so important for you to not say, oh, I'll just serve anybody that has money in their bank account, and instead say, I serve someone super specific. And I'll give the audience like the best one I've ever heard. And I laughingly say, like, if I meet you at a bar or if I meet you at one of those events and I walk up to you and say, hey, what kind of real estate agent are you? And your response to me is, oh, I'm a first-time home buyer specialist. I will always say, cool, I know about 1,000 of them. But the one that I actually never will forget, it's probably impossible for me to forget at this point, and I'm married to a Green Beret and obviously have a close piece to my heart for the military and as a military wife and kind of all of that. So when I met this gentleman and he answered that question, he said, I'm a retired Navy SEAL who specializes in helping other retired veterans utilize their VA benefits. I honestly think that my mouth almost hit the floor. And this guy had only been an agent for like not even 5 years. So, but he had it so dialed in and knew that that's what was necessary in order for him. And in his first couple of years of business, he did more transactions than just about any realtor that I have ever met that have, coming out of the gates of getting there.
Interesting. Isn't that so interesting that you would think that if you went that narrow, you're saying no to all these opportunities, when in actuality, you're saying yes to all the right opportunities. I want to just emphasize that to everybody. If you feel like your business is stuck and you're not getting the traction, it's because you're trying to serve too many people, right? Narrow down your niche, get it right to where people can completely identify who your ideal customer is. And I think your husband would probably speak to this as well as others that you've served and coached, is that at the end of the day, there are that many people will still come to you outside of that, right? Like, it's not like you're actually saying no to them, but you're just getting focused on who the ideal person is. And that although that may seem like a very narrow segment, number one, you're going to get like so much of that pie because you're so clearly speaking to them, right? Yeah. I just think it's such a powerful testament to what you just said there about not trying to be all things to all people. Be something great to the people that you can actually serve the best. So powerful.
Yeah, and I think that what you said too is equally as important. It's that everyone has this mindset of, if I niche down, then all of these other opportunities are going to go to waste. Nobody's going to ever call me outside of this very specific niche. And I can tell you that that's just not going to happen. Like, people are still going to reach out to you. I mean, my Instagram very specifically says real estate and loan officer expert as far as Instagram marketing. I have a client that reached out that's a roofer. I have a client who's reached out who is a hairdresser. I have multiple people in my course that are in like travel agency or like the travel agency business. And it's like, at the end of the day, yes, they're going to come to me more frequently as realtors or loan officers because, again, that's who I specialize in serving. But I'm not going to stop getting opportunities from other people just because of that. So I think it's so important for people to get away from this fear tactic, right? Fear is self-induced, in my opinion. I talk about this on my Instagram all the time. I'm a big Brennan Burchard fan, and he talks about fear and how it literally is just this made up thing. It's a fight or flight response to actual harm, not taking action and doing something.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so now you've got your niche, right? So once people have really identified who are the people that they best serve, and I would encourage people, if you're struggling with who that is, just like Michelle said, look at the last 10 people that you've served. Where do they come from? That's probably a good indicator of people that you serve best. And I would also add, who are the people that really light you up? Where it's like, man, if I could just work with clients like that all day long, my life would be complete. Like, I would love my business. I would never get burnt out. Like, I just want to serve those people. That's probably a great indicator as well. Once you have that, what are the 4 types of content? Like, how do you go about now kind of serving those people via your content?
Yeah, so the 4 pillar pieces of content, and this is probably not going to be mind-blowing to anybody, but the 4 main pieces. First one is, of course, listings. As an agent, you guys have to be promoting listings. Now, if you're a buyer's agent solely, there's of course a way to do that. I call it an in-contract post versus a new listing post. Now, if you're a team leader who maybe is more on the recruiting side, trying to generate new agents for your team versus actual production of your own, then what you guys get to do is kind of a fun opportunity of what I call realtor spotlights. And that goes the same for loan officers. So I coach both of those, the team leaders and the loan officers, to hone in on how can you create this FOMO, or fear of missing out, for those that don't know that phrase, but how can you create this presence of, I want to be part of whatever that culture is that they got going on. And one of the best people that I see that does this is Darwin Wall. He's a big agent here with the Darwin Wall team in Chandler, and he doesn't do a lot of production of his own, but the culture as a whole for his team is, oh my gosh, I have got to be a part of that team. And his content is very well written out. It's very detailed towards talking and supporting agents on his team. So, and Darwin is a student of mine. He's been through my course. A lot of his team members have been through my program, and it's cool to see it coming to life in that case. So if you're a production agent, you need to focus on listings. That's content piece number one. Content piece number two is testimonials. And I think that a lot of people struggle with testimonials because one, they get messages from people that are like, oh my God, you made this so great. Thank you so much. And the agent struggles with, how do I turn that into a testimonial? So one of the things that I've done is I've combated that issue and created what I call a testimonial prompt for the agents. And the prompt does multiple things. One, it gets them to actually answer the questions you need them to answer so that you can turn it into an actual testimonial that you can share. And two, it gets you social approval, because a lot of times agents fear using content without getting social approval from the person that they're getting it from. So testimonials come in two forms. One, it's the written text from the individual, and two, it's actually the photos of you guys at closing, right? So a lot of people do their buyers holding their key at title, or they'll hold like a sold sign out in front of their house for sellers. Another really popular example of a good testimonial would be like the closing goodies that you do for people, or even like the pop buys that you do for some of your, immediate pipeline. And I have an agent here that she does a really cool thing where every month she does a coffee giveaway. And so she has like a $15 gift card. So she's still compliant, right? She's not outside of the range of what you can do, because a lot of agents are scared of doing giveaways because they think that they're not allowed to. You just got to stay within the rules. So anyway, she does this $15 giveaway, coffee giveaway, and she actually goes and hand delivers it to this person. And it's always someone who she's never worked with. And again, all of it is through Instagram. So it's a cool way for her to like create a market there through social proof. So that's another example of a testimonial. And then the third piece of content is something that I know we'll probably jump into here momentarily, but it's what I call value series. And this is our content differentiation. This is how we stand out. And I know, Justin, you've already said, how do we differentiate? How do we get to that place? And it's done through the value series. So this is a term that I've coined throughout the process, but what the value series is really one topic that you're breaking down for the entire month. And you're breaking it down into 5 individual posts that can all be used for your month worth of content. So instead of feeling like, oh, I just got one post up that's value driven, now what else do I say? We take a topic and we make it into bite-sized chunks so that it's really consumable. And the way that I coach this is to get away from cookie cutter topics. There's my word again, right? But getting away from, oh, let me do a series about pre-approval. Well, okay, pre-approval has been talked about 100 times. So how do we make pre-approval a little bit maybe more of a sexy topic for people? And the answer to that is kind of flipping it upside down and thinking about an individual piece within that pre-approval process. And I just wrote a value series the other day for a client who she said, I really want to talk about pre-approval. I specialize in helping first-time home buyers who are newly married. So she had very niche down, right? She was an ordained minister herself, so she likes serving first-time home buyers who are recently married because it also helped her get ordained ministry side jobs, right? That's kind of like her thing. But she wanted to do this this value series on pre-approval, and I was like, cool, let's talk about pre-approval. But because you specialize in working with first-time home buyers, why don't we create a series about whether or not, as a first-time home buyer, you have to use an FHA loan? So the entire series was, instead of pre-approval, was as a first-time home buyer, what are my loan options, right? So I was a first-time home buyer when I was 24, and I actually went 30-year fixed conventional because it made more sense financially for me. So instead of this general, here's the 4 or 5 steps to the pre-approval process, how do we get into something real specific and then allow the agent to kind of live in their zone of genius or their specialty when they're producing content? So that was a long-winded answer to the value series, but that is the core piece or the core part of number 3. And then the 4th piece is my favorite. It's lifestyle images. So they're just anything from your camera roll. I post pictures of Dave and I all the time. I'm an Olympic weightlifter outside of running an Instagram company. I'm a big outdoors person. I have two incredibly amazing dogs who are like my children. You know, all kinds of things that Dave and I do behind the scenes. I'm really active on stories, and I'm really showing up just as a person. And that lifestyle image piece allows us to create that, hey, I feel like I know you feeling that we're after.
I love it. So many nuggets in there. Let's summarize. Okay, so from the top, just give the titles of each. So if people are trying to put all those amazing ideas into a structure that they can then walk away with, point number one, or piece of content number one is?
Listings.
Okay, listings, kind of like what your production specific needs are, right? You're highlighting that, you're talking about that, okay, great. Point number two.
Testimonials.
Okay, testimonials, I love it. Okay, and then point number three was your value series.
Yep.
And then point number four, or type of content number four, is your lifestyle. Okay, love it. That should help everybody, right? When you've got 4 buckets to choose from, right? How powerful it is. I actually had a mentor of mine that said, choose your buckets, set up separate albums within your iPhone. Every time you take a picture that relates to one of that, drop it into that particular file. So then when it's time to go post, you've got all these buckets to choose from, right? That's one option. That, and I think you've given us an amazing framework through which people can really kind of think when it comes to content, like, oh yeah, where am I at, right? What do I do next? Like, what should I put out there? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is like, I don't know what to say now, right? Or I think this is going to be too boring. Like, put it in the bucket and go to the bucket and choose your best option there and keep moving. So love it. Okay, let's talk about using Instagram to get leads that are on fire for you, right? I think that's a key thing that we promised at the beginning of this episode, that this is just for your own vanity, right? This is actually produce business. So how do you create this Instagram presence that actually creates leads that are absolutely fired up about using you?
Yeah, so how this happens is through what we just went over, right? So those 4 types of content, creating them in a structure that allows people to, 1, like you and build that virtual handshake with you. 2, trust you through the way that we produce social proof, through our value series, our testimonials, and our listing days, right? So, and side note, listing days, just for those who might be asking, you don't have to have a bunch of new listings every month. It's basically anything along the pendulum of the home buying process. So listing, sold, under contract, pending, you know, blah, 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 open house, whatever. So anyways, we have to create our content so that we create this or develop this feeling with those that are consuming our content, that 1, they really like us and they feel connected to us through our story factor, right? Or telling our life story through our lifestyle images. And then 2, they come across your value series content and subliminally they already like you because you have commonality, whether it's, you know, because I'm an Army wife, or whether it's because you guys have a Doberman Pinscher, like, I don't know, right? But you're creating that kind of connection. Then they're going to start to see your business or value content through your value series, testimonials, listing days stuff. So they're kind of just always around. They're consuming personal, business, and they're starting to get this vibe of, this person is an expert. This person is somebody who's consistent, which, you know, shows up every day because they have our content calendar and they're posting consistently. And that person's now using stories correctly. So how we generate leads the best is by doing our content calendar and building content that's strong in those 4 categories we talked about, and then just showing up every day. So what I do is I actually pre-plan all my content out for the week. So I usually do 7 days in advance. And then every single day, my only job is 2 things. 1, to show up on stories, and 2, to be social on social media. So doing my comments, doing my likes, showing up on the pages or the people's pages who I'm trying to generate business from. So one of the things I did, right, Justin, to get a hold or to connect with you, was I just sent you a DM, right? And sending you a DM opens up this opportunity for further conversation. And again, you're somebody who was kind of in my sphere in the older public world, and it became kind of like this commonality that I said, oh, this might be awesome. So part of how we generate that is the content all inclusively says, I'm an expert, I'm also a person. 2, we're showing up consistently. So people are like, oh, if I were to send them a message, they'll probably get back to me. Now, and I say that because it's huge. And psychologically, as humans, the last thing we want to do is send a message to somebody and have to wait 4 or 5 days for them to get back to us. right? That's the worst thing, especially in a time sensitive type situation. So the way you guys start to get to the point where leads are just rolling into you is your content, your stories are consistent, and you're doing your engagement. And then why I came up with the term of leads that are on fire for you is if you guys have ever, as agents, had to close a Zillow lead back in the day, you guys know how hard they are, or a Facebook lead that you get off of a Facebook ad. They've been touched by 100 other people. They've probably been called by 15 other real estate agents. They get text messages all the time, people trying to solicit their business. They don't want that, right? They want to make their own educated decision. So when they get to consume your content and they see all of these things, they then say, this is the realtor for me. Get rid of all the noise that's going on over here. I want to hire this person.
Love it. Love it. It really, once you found your niche, once you're putting these 4 types of content in front of them regularly, now it's just natural to reach out to people, right? When you reach out to people, how do you not sound salesy, right? What does that sound like? I know when you reached out to me, it didn't feel salesy at all. It was like, hey, I'm in this space, you're in this space. Like, let's talk. Maybe we can benefit each other, right? Maybe we can add value to each other. Is that kind of what it sounds like when you're a real estate agent reaching out to a potential client or through Instagram? Like, kind of walk us through maybe people's hesitation in reaching out through that way.
Yeah. So everyone, I talk to people literally all day, every day, and they say the same thing. They're like, I don't want to come across salesy. I don't want to feel like that sleazy car salesman that slid into somebody's DMs, right? And especially the ladies, I get people who will reach out and be like, if I get hit on one more time or ask for a marriage proposal through my DMs one more time, I'm going to be annoyed and over this whole Instagram thing. And so how I want and how I coach you guys through this process is what I actually call, the module itself is called DM Like a Boss, but the process or the structure of it is called the messenger machine. And it's really based off of creating and identifying a list of people who are worthy of that message instead of just going out and rapid firing to anyone. So how we identify that is, there's a whole structure or framework to it, but really, if you're posting stories consistently, the fastest way I can tell you is that the leads that you really should be communicating with via DM are the ones that are consistently consuming your stories every day. So that's your first place to start, because if you reach out to them and you say, hey, so-and-so, I saw that you commented or clicked on the yes in my poll. What kind of dog do you have, right? If it's a poll about your dog or if it's a heart eyeball slide emoji thing in stories, whatever it is, you're reaching out based off of their actions already on your content. So you're not just reaching out to some random person who just liked one of your posts, who maybe did it rapidly without even really thinking about it, but taking the time or the effort it takes for someone to actually consume a story and then click on a poll is a lot higher on the totem pole of worthiness for you to then send them a DM. So the messenger machine system, the way I built it, is to help you guys identify who those people are. So who are the cold leads, right? Who have just consumed your content here and there. You can tell they're kind of lurking around. And then how do we get them from cold to warm to hot? And again, that's all kind of like a process. But really it starts with, in order to send DMs in the first place, make sure that they're qualified to get it.
I love it. Yeah. Once people, like you said, are consuming your stories, which is amazing that Facebook/Instagram have made that visible, right? It's really helpful so that that the stuff that you've been putting out there is interesting enough that they keep coming back for more, which means that they're probably open to a conversation. Makes it way less weird, right? When you reach out to somebody. And I would agree that we're living in a time and an era where the consumer's client experience matters more and more, and people will continue to make decisions about who they work with based on who has the best client experience. And I would argue that the industry or the tactics of calling people when they don't want to be called repeatedly, even if you're nice about it, is not a great client experience. It's not a great way. It's not a great door through which you enter into somebody's life. And I know that there's a lot of people that have great businesses around it, and you can argue with me all day long and say, look, here's the money trail. And I'm saying, I know, but I'm just saying long-term, I think that those people where the clients are coming to you as opposed to you coming at them, it's going to be a different experience, and your pay is going to be very different. And the overall respect and professional identity that you carry in the marketplace, and thereby leading to the amount of business you get in the future, is going to depend upon that, kind of how you show up. Are you chasing people, or are they chasing you? And I think what you've shared with us here, Michelle, is really a template to have people to be so valuable and be demonstrating your value so clearly in the marketplace that people start to chase you, right? People really start to seek you out and want to see if you have space in your calendar to work with them, because they recognize the value that you bring, right? And that's the ideal situation. And that's what agents that are following your coaching are experiencing, right? That's what they're doing, is because they're following this pattern, they're following this method, and they're in a spot now to where people are seeking them out, as opposed to having to always be on the chase.
Absolutely. I mean, any agent who is ever been or has been an agent for longer than the COVID pandemic knows that door knocking sucks. It's hot, especially where I live in Arizona. And cold calling people and sitting with a list of, 100 names in front of you and going through all of them. Is there anything worse? I can't think of one, So instead of spending a lot of effort and energy there to maybe get one or two out of those 100 people to actually turn into a pipeline lead or somebody who may be working with you down the road, why not spend that same 2 hours where you would be cold calling, having genuine conversations on a platform that is already structured to help people find you for free very easily, and then allow those conversations to kind of happen organically and naturally. And again, they're stronger leads. So what that leads to, they're not going to shop you around, right? They're more than likely going to reach out to you and be like, I'm ready to go. Where do I sign? I need to go look at this house that you just posted.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah.
All right. I've got two requests of you. Do you have something that you could share with this audience, for those that are listening? We'll share it into the Think Bigger Real Estate group, some template, some PDF, something that you could share with the group that would really help them put into action some of what you're talking about here today.
Yeah. So I actually have a freebie called the Instagram Power Method Roadmap. So I will make sure you get that link, Justin, so you can share it with them. But the roadmap covers the 3 big mistakes that you guys are currently making. So it's going to hit them right, and it's going to feel weird, right? You're going to read those and be like, crap, I'm doing all 3 of those probably. And then it's going to lead into the 4-part framework for you guys to actually understand what those pillars need to be.
Cool.
And then if you guys are, feel good about that and the roadmap makes sense to you, there's an opportunity for you guys to join my free masterclass. It's a 60-minute online. You guys can start whenever you want. There's 4 time slots per day that you guys get to choose from, and take advantage of that, right? So I go through a lot of things in that masterclass that are going to continue the conversation and continue to move the needle for all of you in your businesses, and give you an opportunity to just actually hit the ground running correctly from the day that you decide to make that commitment.
I love it. Please send us that link. We'll be sure and put it both in the group as well as in the show notes and the email summary that goes out at the end of the week. So people will love getting access to that so that they can truly learn from you and implement the things that you're talking about. All right. Our final question, Michelle, I asked this to every big thinker that's come on the show. And the question is this: you're a big thinker, right? That's why you're on the Think Bigger Real Estate show. You're doing some amazing things, helping other people do some amazing things. What is it that you do on a regular basis to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand Michelle's possibilities? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I talked about this super briefly in the beginning, but I'm a big mastermind believer, right? I am a diehard whiteboard person. I'm a diehard poster board, brainstorming, draw circles with arrows and all kinds of things. So one of the things that my assistant Sarah and I do, and Sarah, for anybody who maybe knows her or has come across her, is literally the other half of my brain. So one of the things that we do every single month is we sit and we draw out our different revenue streams. And we have 6 currently. So we map all of that out. And every month at the end of the month, we go over each one of those 6 and we say which one of these is not moving the needle as much as it should be. And how do we reinvent it so that we now have a new 6? Because obviously, I'm a big Gary Vee person. And one of the things Gary Vee always says too is the millionaires of the world always usually have anywhere from 6 to 7 streams of income, right? So that's where the 6 came up with, or that I came up with the 6 to move that needle towards that. So at the end of the month, we do that. We go through and we identify all of the 6 and the pitfalls or the holes, if you will, in them. And one of the biggest things, this is going to sound dumb, but, and kind of oh yeah, well, of course, but I read a lot. I actually have my book right now with me, but The Big Leap is my biggest one right now this is my second time through the book. And what this book does it was actually recommended to me by my business coach. But what it's done for me is it's shown me the different levels of my action, right? What level am I living in? And it starts with, zone of incompetence, zone of competence, zone of excellence, zone of genius. And when we're living in our zone of genius, that's when all of the creative juices are flowing. So one of the things that I try to do is read things, whether it's Brendon Burchard or any, somebody that's been recommended to me, that force me to think about the systems I have in place. Because a lot of the times I hear other people and I listen to how their business or their system's working, and I'm like, oh my gosh, weird, I'm doing that. But you know what? Why don't I tinker it a little bit more towards the way they're doing it and see what happens? So I think one of the thing I'll say to all encompass that is, don't be afraid to take side notes, right? Or like little side trails, and see where that side trail is going to go. Because some of those, let's just try this ideas from our mastermind and from the way or the types of books that I read have literally changed my career.
Powerful stuff. Michelle, thank you so much for everything that you've contributed. We're excited to get our hands on these additional tools that will help us implement what you've talked about today. I'm excited that this audience now has knowledge of you, access to you, and can really dig in with you at a deeper level to really learn how to turn Instagram into their most powerful business tool in growing their business, bringing qualified leads that are on fire. What a privilege for all of us to hear you speak about that. So I want to thank you so much for your contribution to the show. And I want to remind everybody what I ask of you every single episode. And they are these 3 simple words, and they are: go, think bigger. Thank you so much, Michelle, for helping us do that today. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. Thank you to everyone for listening.